Hello, I'm David Hughes. Welcome to Your Perfect Body, the podcast of the esoteric teaching community. Today we're going to talk some more about the big questions, especially as they apply to yoga. Remember last time we talked about the big questions and how the difference between someone who is spiritually just mediocre and really successful in life is their willingness to confront the really big questions of life. And I promised to give some examples, so today we're going to examine the big questions as far as the yoga path is concerned. A lot of people have had experience with yoga, so I thought it would be a good place to start since we're going to be going into the subject of yoga quite deeply on this podcast. So if you're into yoga and meditation, my challenge to you is to answer for yourself the big questions about yoga. First of all, how long have you been involved with yoga and meditation? A year, 5 years, 10 years, 20? Now let's discuss this question. A real yogi is a yogi for life. Yoga, the original meaning of yoga, is not just an exercise form. It's a very deep encounter between the individual soul and the super soul, or between the human being and God. And that's what yoga really means. It comes from the word yukta, which means to link or join. Well, what are we linking? We're linking the individual soul with the super soul. So if a person has been practicing yoga, let's say 5 or 10 years, they should already know this. In fact, they should be quite comfortable with it, and it should be their mode of practice, their mode of realization. Is that where you're at? Or are you still just doing the bends and twists and stretches, hoping to recover your youthful figure? That's not yoga. That's just some stretching exercises so that you can sit properly for meditation. That's all it was ever intended to be. Oh yeah, by the way, it has some nice health effects. Well, yeah. But that's not the point. The real point of yoga exercise is simply to stretch you out so that you can sit properly without moving in meditation posture for half an hour or an hour without a break. The real action happens after you're sitting. So my next question for you is, do you follow any particular teaching, style, method, or path of yoga, or do you just do whatever you like? Well, we find that most people, after they have some experience with yoga, just pretty much take a little bit from here, a little bit from there, and they do whatever combination of exercises and meditations and so forth that appeals to them. Unfortunately, this is not a very efficient way to approach the yoga path because the yoga science is delivered from the ancient past by means of disciplic lineage. So to really practice yoga, you need to become a disciple of an advanced yogi and practice with them for a long time. The real key to the whole thing is finding an adequate teacher, a great teacher, a teacher who can really take you to the top of yoga. After that, everything else follows. So how would you characterize your level of yoga practice? Are you a beginner, intermediate, or advanced? Well, beginner, intermediate, advanced compared to what? Compared to the man on the street, anybody who can do a few shoulder stands or whatever is certainly considered advanced. But compared to the actual people who have perfected yoga, then most of us are simply in the beginner stage, and we need to admit that. So this question will show you how honest you are. Next question is, how would you characterize your involvement in the yoga or meditation community? Are you a dilettante, a dabbler, a window shopper who drifts from teacher to teacher? Or are you serious about your discipline? Are you into the yoga lifestyle? Have you ever taught yoga or meditation? Do you have students, disciples? The idea here is that yoga is not just something you do. It's a lifestyle, and it's also a basis for a community. And if you're not involved in a spiritual community, then you are not getting the full advantage of yoga practice, because you do your little practice, maybe by yourself or in a small class, and then you're out there in the world with no further connection to the science of yoga. And that's a pretty materialistic concept, seems to me. I live in a spiritual community full-time in a rural location, Southeast America, and I would never leave. I love it out here. So not only that, it protects me from all kinds of different dangers of society today. So you need a community based on spiritual life. Maybe you don't realize it, but you do. Next question is, when studying or reading about yoga, do you sometimes feel that the information is incomplete, that secrets are being held back? Do you wonder what they might be? As far as we can tell, the information available publicly about the yoga system is tremendously incomplete. While we were in India, we had the opportunity to study the complete Vedic literatures, which is the secret source of the yoga teaching. And we found that, well, it was astonishing, actually, how much knowledge there is about yoga that is never taught in ordinary yoga classes. And if you're intelligent, you're going to feel this. It's going to be a sort of subtext when studying about yoga that, well, why do we do this? And why don't we do that? Why is it done this way and not that way or some other way? An intelligent person will start to question, where are those answers? The answers are in the original source materials on yoga. And so if you can find them, then you will get those answers and much, much more. So the next question, naturally, is, are you aware of the original source material on yoga and meditation and so forth? Have you read it? And if you did read it, was it in the English translation or in the original language? Well, most people who practice yoga aren't even aware that there are source materials of yoga. If you're aware of, for example, Patanjali or the four Vedas, you can count yourself as better informed than the average yoga practitioner in the West. But again, my question is, have you read it? Have you read Patanjali? Have you read it in somebody's translation? Or have you gone back to the original Sanskrit and read that? If you have, you will find that yoga is a spiritual discipline. It is not simply about exercise. That's the first thing you'll find. The next thing you will find is that it's extremely complex and sophisticated, and it draws on a background science of consciousness that is not included in the ordinary source material such as Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. So where is that source material? Where is that background science? Well, that's the esoteric teaching. That's what we're talking about here. Next question. What is the aim or goal of yoga and meditation? Did you know that, according to the original source literature, the aim of yoga and meditation is to attain